My mother-in-law revealed my pregnancy loss at a family dinner, so I later exposed her secret at her anniversary celebration. I was 12 weeks along when, while at work, I suddenly felt warmth spreading down my leg. I rushed to the restroom and saw blood soaking through my clothes. With trembling hands, I called my husband, Mac, and told him something was terribly wrong. There was too much blood, and I was scared. I begged him to come immediately. He told me not to move and said he was on his way. I could hear him grabbing his keys and running out the door. By the time doctors brought me into a hospital room and connected the monitors, our baby was already gone. The doctor used clinical phrases, explaining it happened naturally, and there was nothing I could have done. But all I truly heard was that the tiny heartbeat we had seen just weeks earlier was gone, with no clear explanation. Max sat beside the bed, burying his face in his hands as he cried. I reached for him and apologized, though I didn't know why. He looked up and told me to stop, that none of this was my fault. He pulled me close, holding me tightly as we both broke down. We stayed like that until a nurse explained what would happen next. We decided not to tell anyone until we were emotionally ready. I told Mac I couldn't deal with his mother right now. He agreed and promised we would share the news when I felt prepared. I trusted him completely. I shouldn't have forgotten that keeping anything from his mother, Lorena, was nearly impossible. She had a key to our home and let herself in whenever she pleased. 3 days later, I sat on the kitchen floor crying into a baby outfit I bought recently when I heard the door open. Lorena walked in carrying groceries, her expression tight with judgment. She looked around at the mess and commented on the scene. I wiped my face and told her I hadn't expected her. She brushed past me, saying she assumed I'd only been slightly unwell, not falling apart. Her eyes locked on the baby clothes in my hands. She demanded to know why I was crying over them. I didn't want to explain, but exhaustion took over. I told her the baby was gone, my voice breaking. Her face shifted into something resembling sympathy, though I sensed calculation behind it. She sat beside me, holding my hands, saying she knew something had been wrong. She suggested stress and poor self-care may have played a role, hinting I hadn't taken proper care of myself. I reminded her the doctor said otherwise. She nodded but continued implying I could have done better. Then she asked me not to dwell on it and said what was done was done. I begged her not to tell anyone. She swore she wouldn't, claiming she would never betray my trust. Still, she mentioned the family deserved to know eventually. That Friday, she called saying she planned a small gathering to surround us with love. I said I wasn't ready, but she insisted it wasn't about me, claiming Mac needed support. When we arrived, there were far more people than promised. During dinner, Lorena loudly expressed sympathy toward me, drawing attention. Midway through the meal, she stood and announced our loss, asking for prayers. Every face turned toward me. She leaned over and told me I should smile. That night, I decided I was done staying silent. On the drive home, Mac defended her actions and said I owed her an apology. He claimed she was only trying to help. I told him I was angry and had every right to be. He said ignoring her was cruel and demanded I apologize. I walked inside without responding. When he followed, insisting again, I told him maybe she should reflect on her actions. He stared at me, saying I was being unreasonable. All she did, he said, was ask for prayers. That's what family does. I got into bed, switched off my lamp, and said quietly that if he couldn't understand what she had done wrong, I didn't know how to explain it. He stood there in the darkness for a long moment, then left the room. I heard the guest bedroom door close. The next morning, my phone was flooded with 17 messages. Max had asked if I was okay because Lorena had called her, worried about my emotional condition. A cousin reached out, saying she heard I wasn't coping well and wanted to help. Another relative asked if I needed professional support because Lorena said I'd been acting unstable. Message after message came from people I barely knew, all expressing concern about my mental state. Lorena had spent the night calling the entire family, convincing them something was seriously wrong with me. I walked into the kitchen where Mac was drinking coffee and showed him my phone. "Look at this," I said. "Look at what she's doing." He glanced at the screen and shrugged. He said she was just concerned, that everyone was. I told him she wasn't worried about me at all. She was setting the stage, so no one would believe me when I told them what she'd done. He set down his mug and told me to listen to myself. I sounded paranoid, he said. His mother loved me and was trying to help. I stared at him and realized then that he would never understand. He had spent his entire life believing everything Lorena did came from love, and nothing I said could undo that. 3 days later, a coworker stopped me at work and asked if everything was okay at home. When I asked why, she hesitated before explaining that my mother-in-law had gone to her church's prayer group. Lorena had asked strangers to pray for me because she believed I wasn't caring for myself. She told them I'd been struggling since the pregnancy and was worried I might harm myself. My stomach dropped. Lorena had gone to my co-worker's church and told complete strangers that story. She was creating a pattern, documenting behavior, making sure that when I finally spoke up, people would already believe I was unstable. I drove home and found Mac watching television. I told him his mother had told a prayer group she feared I might hurt myself. He muted the TV and said she'd mentioned reaching out to people to get me support. He said it sounded like a good idea. I hadn't been myself lately. I told him I hadn't been myself because I lost a baby. His mother announced it publicly, and then she spent days telling everyone I was mentally unwell. He walked over, placing his hands on my shoulders, speaking softly as if calming someone fragile. He suggested therapy. He even mentioned a counselor his mother knew from church. He said she felt I wasn't processing things properly and admitted he was starting to agree. I pulled away and asked if he really wanted me to see someone his mother recommended so she could control that story too. He threw his hands up and said this was exactly what he meant. I was acting like everyone was against me, and that wasn't healthy. That night, he moved into the guest room. He said he needed space because I wouldn't apologize or accept help, and he didn't know what else to do. I lay alone, staring at the ceiling, realizing Lorena had isolated me completely in under 2 weeks. My husband believed I was unstable. His family believed it. My coworkers believed it. She had taken my worst moment and turned it into a weapon, all while crying and asking for prayers. The next morning, I saw a post Lorena shared online. It was a photo from the dinner, showing her hugging me tightly. The caption asked for prayers for her sweet daughter-in-law during a difficult time. It had hundreds of reactions and comments praising her. People tagged mental health resources for me. I screenshot everything and sent it to my best friend Danielle, asking if I was losing my mind. She called immediately, furious. She told me this was calculated and dangerous. She said my husband was helping his mother destroy me and that I needed to leave. When I said I didn't know where to go, she offered her home and warned me this wasn't normal. I sat alone realizing how completely my life had collapsed. I had lost my baby, my marriage, and my reputation, while Lorena collected sympathy. When she asked me to help prepare her anniversary party, I agreed, not to arrange decorations, but because I knew women like her always have secrets. She believed sending me alone was safe. She had no idea what she handed me when she gave me those keys. While preparing, she criticized everything I did. Eventually, she sent me upstairs to retrieve chairs from her closet. As I moved boxes, a shoebox fell, spilling receipts. They were for expensive jewelry I'd never seen her wear. Then her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from someone named Emmanuel appeared, ending with a heart. The preview read, "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you." My blood turned cold. I recognized that name immediately. Emmanuel was a deacon at Lorena's church. He had been attending family dinners for years. He always chose the seat beside her, always refilled her glass before anyone else's, always laughed a little too enthusiastically at her comments. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was someone else with the same name. Maybe the message meant nothing, and I was only looking for faults because I wanted to find one. But my hands moved on their own. I picked up her phone and entered the passcode I had seen her type countless times at family gatherings. The screen unlocked instantly. I opened her messages, found Emmanuel's conversation, and began scrolling. Messages about missing each other, about being understood, about wishing they had chosen each other instead. The conversation went back 7 years. 7 years of declarations, dependence, and detailed exchanges that made my stomach tighten. I kept scrolling, my hands trembling, until I reached photos. Lorena wearing outfits I'd never seen. Emmanuel shirtless in hotel rooms. The two of them together, timestamps matching trips I remembered. Their Napa getaway. The Tahoe reunion. Christmas Eve when she claimed she was exhausted and went to bed early. I checked her photo gallery and discovered a hidden folder filled with even more images. There were hotel rooms, reservation screenshots, restaurant receipts, and confirmations from trips she told her husband were girls' weekends. Then I remembered the jewelry receipts. I checked the dates. Each piece had been purchased just days after one of those trips. Emmanuel had been buying her gifts she couldn't wear openly, items she hid away like trophies. Standing in that closet, surrounded by proof of 7 years of deception, something shifted inside me. This was the same woman who had ruined my reputation, turned my husband against me, and shared my most painful loss publicly. She had spoken about values and loyalty while secretly seeing a church leader. I took screenshots of everything. Messages, photos, receipts. I worked quickly and carefully, saving every detail to my phone. Then I placed her phone back exactly where it had been, grabbed the chairs, and returned downstairs like nothing had happened. Lorena smiled and thanked me for helping, saying she appreciated it despite recent tension. I smiled back and said family always helps. She had no idea I now had everything. The rest of the day, I watched her give orders while planning my next move. Part of me wanted to tell her husband immediately. He deserved the truth. But another part of me knew that wasn't enough. She had embarrassed me publicly and then painted me as unstable. She didn't deserve a private conversation. She deserved to feel what I had felt. The anniversary celebration was in 2 weeks. 200 guests. A slideshow. Speeches. Everyone she wanted approval from would be there celebrating a marriage she'd been betraying for years. I drove home with evidence and a plan forming. That night, I sat my husband down and told him I needed him to look at something carefully. He sighed but agreed. I slid my phone across the table, opening the messages. I told him what I'd found and how long it had been happening. He scrolled silently. I waited for shock, for understanding. Instead, he looked at me with disgust. He accused me of invading her privacy. He said he didn't care what I'd found, only that I'd crossed a line. I begged him to look again. The dates, the photos, the proof. He shook his head and said it could be fake. He accused me of fabricating everything out of jealousy. In that moment, I realized nothing would change his mind. Evidence didn't matter. He had spent his entire life believing her. He left to stay with her that night. I sat alone, staring at the proof, wondering how she could still win. The next morning, I received a message from an unknown number. It warned me to stay silent, or she would tell everyone I caused my own loss. My hands shook as I reread it. She knew. I tried calling my husband, but he didn't answer. I drove to her house and found them sitting together, calm and smiling. Lorena greeted me sweetly and mentioned my sleep troubles, as if nothing at all was wrong. I held up my phone and showed her the message. "You sent this," I said. She tilted her head, pretending confusion. "Sent what? I don't know what you mean." Matt took the phone, reading the message, and his expression hardened. "You probably sent this to yourself," he said, "to make her look bad, just like those screenshots you faked." Lorena reached out, patting his arm gently. "It's okay, honey. She's struggling. We both know that. Maybe it's time we got her some real help before she does something irreversible." I looked at them, mother and son, united against me. I realized then that a private confrontation would never succeed. Lorena had spent decades conditioning Mac to believe her over anyone else. She had excuses and tears ready for every accusation I could make. If I wanted to expose her, I needed a stage, somewhere she couldn't spin the story, a place where everyone could see the evidence and make their own judgments, somewhere Mac couldn't whisper reassurances to her. The anniversary party was 6 days away, 200 witnesses, a projector, a microphone. If she wanted to celebrate 30 years of faithful marriage, I would make sure everyone saw what those years really looked like. Private confrontation had failed. Public exposure was my only option. She believed she had won by swaying Mac, but she hadn't accounted for the 200 guests who would soon witness the truth. The projector and microphone would reveal everything. She intended to play the devoted wife. I would let her, right up to the moment her facade collapsed. The night of the party, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes, deciding what to wear. Mac hadn't come home in 4 days, staying at his mother's house, only texting to ask if I had calmed down. I chose a red dress I had never worn, a dress Lorena once said was too bold for my complexion. I did my makeup slowly, thinking about what I was about to do. The USB drive was already in my purse. I had spent the last 5 days organizing everything: texts by date, photos chronologically, a timeline showing every affair milestone, and the lies Lorena told to cover them. I drove alone to the venue. It was a grand ballroom at the city's finest hotel, chandeliers sparkling, white tablecloths on every table, and 200 guests in their Sunday best, ready to celebrate 3 decades of what they believed was a faithful marriage. Lorena spotted me immediately and rushed over, arms wide. "Elise, you came!" She hugged me and whispered, "Smile, or everyone will think you're having another episode." I smiled. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, Lorena. Tonight is unforgettable." Her expression flickered, suspicion passing briefly before someone called her name, and she drifted away to accept compliments on her dress, decorations, and the marriage everyone believed she had nurtured. I found a seat near the back and watched, surrounded by people unaware of the true story. Kenneth lingered near the bar, uncomfortable in his suit. Big parties had never been his thing. He once admitted that Lorena planned these events for herself, and he merely attended. Mac arrived, sitting down quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't sure either," I replied, "but I didn't want to miss your mother's big night." He glanced at me, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Does that mean you're ready to apologize? Move on." I lifted my glass of champagne and sipped slowly. Tonight is going to change a lot of things. Let's see how it goes. The program started at 7. Lorena had scheduled every minute. First, a slideshow of 30 years together, then toasts from family and friends, a speech on the secret to a lasting marriage, dinner, dancing, and probably more gratitude for divine blessings. I watched the slideshow, wedding day smiles, Lorena holding baby Mac, family vacations, holidays, anniversaries, images telling the story she wanted everyone to believe. Toast began. Mac's aunt praised Lorena as the glue holding the family together. A church friend lauded her devotion and faith. The pastor declared her an example of Christian womanhood for younger women. Then Emmanuel rose, glass in hand, confident and charming. "I've known Lorena and Kenneth for 15 years, he said. "They are the most devoted couple I've ever met. Their marriage inspires everyone who knows them." He spoke of mutual support, family first priorities, and a life built on faith and love. He raised his glass. "To 30 more years." Everyone drank. Lorena dabbed her eyes with a napkin as Emmanuel returned to his seat beside his unsuspecting wife, the same woman who had no idea her husband had been with Lorena for 7 of those years. Lorena approached the microphone. I knew this was the speech about trust, communication, and never going to bed angry. I felt the USB drive in my purse and waited. 30 years, Lorena began, voice trembling with practiced emotion. 30 years ago, I married my best friend. Every day, I've been grateful for him. We faced challenges, but we never stopped choosing each other. We always put family first. Our vows remain unbroken. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. Some heads turned. Lorena froze when she saw me approaching the stage. "Elise," she said into the microphone. "What are you doing?" I climbed the steps. "I wanted to add something to your speech," I said. Her expression shifted, confusion, suspicion, then a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" I faced the 200 attendees, found Kenneth at the head table, Mac frozen in his seat, Emmanuel rising, sensing something amiss. I held up the USB drive. The slideshow was ready. All I needed was the moment to expose Lorena's double life. For the first time, I had control. Before I could move, her hand gripped my wrist tightly, nails digging in. "Elise, honey, let's go get some air," she hissed. "You look unwell." I pulled my arm back. "I feel fine, actually. Better than I have in weeks." She leaned close. "Do anything foolish, and I will ruin you. I'll tell everyone you're having a breakdown. I'll make sure Shane never speaks to you again." I whispered back, "You already did all of that. What else do you have?" Her smile flickered for a brief second before she composed herself and spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Of course, you may say a few words. We're all family here." She stepped aside toward the microphone, eyes calculating, trying to gauge what I could possibly do that she couldn't explain away. Before I could approach the tech booth, Lorena gripped my elbow, her touch disguised as gentle concern. "We need to talk first," she hissed. "Alone." She guided me into a coat closet and shut the door. In the darkness, her true expression emerged. No warmth, no friendliness, just cold calculation. "I know you found something," she said. "Shane told me you went through my phone. Whatever you think you have, it won't work. I've spent 30 years building relationships in this community. I'm the woman everyone trusts. You've spent 2 weeks acting like a person who can't handle losing a baby." I stiffened. "I didn't lose a baby," I said quietly. "My baby died. There's a difference." She waved her hand dismissively. "Same difference. No one will believe you over me. Even with video evidence, they'd assume you faked it. I've already told them how unstable, paranoid, and obsessed you are." She moved closer, her perfume mixed with champagne. "Here's the plan. You'll go back out there, smile, clap during my speech, act like a supportive daughter-in-law. Then you'll go home, pack, file for divorce, and disappear from my son's life. Do it quietly, and I won't tell anyone the truth about your miscarriage." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean? Truth?" Her smile twisted cruelly. "Stress causes miscarriage. Everyone knows that. And you were stressed, weren't you? Working long hours, arguing with Shane, pushing for a baby until your body couldn't handle it. That's the story I'll tell. You ignored warnings, kept working, and caused your own loss." I stared at her in that coat closet, realizing I was facing someone without limits, someone who would destroy anyone to protect herself. Someone who decided I was disposable the moment I became inconvenient. "You know the worst part?" I said softly. "I thought you might love Shane. That all you did was misguided maternal instinct. But you don't love anyone, do you? Not Kenneth. Not Shane. Not even Emmanuel. You just love being admired." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise. Maybe recognition. "You don't understand," she said, voice less certain. I confronted her. "I found the jewelry, the diamond bracelet, the pearls, the necklace, all gifts from Emmanuel that you hid because Kenneth can't see them. You keep them like trophies, proof someone wants you." Her face went pale. "So this is all about image, not love, not family. Just being seen as perfect, as desirable, as the center of attention." Her hand shot out, gripping my throat, not hard enough to choke, just enough to assert dominance. "You know nothing about my life," she hissed. "Giving everything to a family that takes you for granted, performing for 30 years, and still feeling invisible." I pushed her hand away. "You're right. I don't know. Because I'd never betray anyone to feel seen." I stepped past her, opened the closet, and returned to the ballroom. She followed, still wearing that armor-like smile. "Elise, wait!" she called sweetly. "You forgot your purse." I ignored her and went straight to the tech booth. I handed the USB drive to the operator. "Add this to the slideshow," I said. He looked confused but complied. I returned to the microphone. Lorena watched me, narrowed eyes, unaware of the evidence I held. She still thought she could spin whatever came next. She didn't realize her entire facade was about to collapse. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," I said, voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Lorena has spoken for months about this party, 30 years of marriage, 30 years of faithfulness, 30 years of putting her family first." I paused, looking at her frozen smile. "But before we continue celebrating, I think everyone deserves to see the truth about what those 30 years really looked like." The screen flickered, switching from wedding photos to something else entirely. The first image, a text message, "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you." Next, a photo of Lorena and Emmanuel in a hotel room from 5 years ago. Another text, "I wish I'd married you instead of Kenneth." The room fell silent. I watched 200 faces absorb what they were seeing. Emmanuel's wife covered her mouth. Kenneth's color drained as he read the scrolling messages. Lorena's smile vanished completely. "These messages span 7 years," I announced. 7 years of lies. 7 years of betrayal. 7 years of Lorena preaching faithful marriage while secretly seeing the church deacon. Lorena lunged for the projector, but 2 of Shane's cousins blocked her. Emmanuel tried to leave, stopped by groomsmen from a nearby wedding. I continued. She announced my miscarriage to 30 people despite promising secrecy. She told everyone I was unstable. She turned my husband against me while texting her boyfriend about wishing she'd married him instead. Kenneth rose, slowly, moving toward the screen, reading each message. When he reached the one from their 25th anniversary, "I wish I were with you tonight instead of him," he removed his wedding ring, hurled it at her face, and walked out. Half the room followed. 200 people had just witnessed Lorena's marriage unravel in real time. She grabbed the microphone, screaming that I was lying, crazy, and jealous. The images continued to play behind her, each word making her case worse. I had taken everything from her in front of everyone she'd wanted to impress. And yet, she still had one last card. She shouted that I was mentally ill and had fabricated every image out of jealousy. I held my phone up, showing the text. "You sent this." Lorena tilted her head with practiced confusion. "Sent what? I don't know what you mean." Mac took the phone and frowned. "Did you send this to yourself? To make her look bad, like those screenshots?" Lorena patted his arm gently. "It's okay, honey. She's not well. Maybe we should consider getting her professional help before she does something irreversible." I looked between them, mother and son, aligned against me. Private confrontation wasn't working. Lorena had spent decades training Mac to trust her above everyone else. Every accusation I could make had an excuse ready. If I wanted to expose her, it had to be public, where she couldn't spin the story, where witnesses could see the truth themselves. The anniversary party, 6 days away, 200 attendees, a projector and microphone was perfect. Private confrontation had failed. This was my only chance. She believed she had won because Max sided with her. But she hadn't accounted for the 200 guests ready to celebrate her so-called perfect marriage. I would reveal everything. That evening, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes, deciding what to wear. Mac hadn't been home for 4 days, staying at his mother's, only texting to ask if I had calmed down. I chose a red dress I'd never worn. Lorena had once said red was too flashy for my skin tone. I applied my makeup slowly, thinking about what I was about to do. The USB drive with all the evidence was already in my purse. 5 days had gone into organizing it. Texts sorted by date, photos arranged chronologically, a timeline showing each affair milestone, and the lies Lorena told Mac to cover them. I drove alone to the ballroom at the city's finest hotel. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, 200 elegantly dressed guests waiting to celebrate 30 years of a marriage built on deception. Lorena spotted me immediately, rushing with arms outstretched. "Elise, you came," she whispered, hugging me. "Smile, or everyone will think you're having another episode." I returned the smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Tonight is going to be unforgettable. Her suspicion flickered briefly, then someone called her name. She floated away to accept more praise for her decorations, her attire, her perfect marriage. I found a seat near the back, watching the room fill. Kenneth lingered by the bar, clearly uncomfortable. Mac arrived and sat without looking at me. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he whispered. "Neither was I," I said. "But I didn't want to miss your mother's big night." He glanced hopefully. "Does that mean you're ready to apologize?" I lifted my champagne glass. "Tonight is going to change a lot, Mac. Let's see what happens." The program began at 7. Slideshow, toasts, Lorena's speech about lasting love, dinner, dancing, and probably more praise for her supposedly faithful life. I watched photos spanning 3 decades, wedding day, baby Mac, holidays, vacations, everything she wanted the world to see. Then came the toasts. Her aunt praised her as the family's glue. A friend spoke of her devotion. The pastor called her a model Christian woman. Then Emmanuel took the microphone, champagne in hand, confident, tall, respected. I've known Lorena and Kenneth for nearly 15 years. I've never met a more devoted couple. Their marriage inspires everyone. Lorena dabbed her eyes while he sat beside his wife, unaware of the betrayal. Lorena moved to the microphone, ready to discuss trust and communication, her speech rehearsed. I slipped the USB from my purse. 30 years of lies were cued behind her slideshow. One signal to the tech team, and everyone would see the truth. I had control for the first time. Lorena grabbed my wrist. Let's get some air, honey. You don't look well. I pulled away. I'm fine. Better than I've felt in weeks. She leaned in. Do anything foolish, and I'll destroy you. I'll claim a breakdown, get you committed, ruin your relationship with Shane. I whispered, You already did all that. What else is left? Her smile faltered. Then, pretending composure, You can speak. We're all family here. She tried to calculate what I could do that she couldn't twist, but before I could act, she dragged me into a coat closet. In darkness, her true face emerged, cold, unfeeling. I know you found something, she said. Shane told me you went through my phone. Whatever you think you have, it won't work. I've spent decades earning trust here. You've spent weeks acting unstable. My baby died, I said quietly. She waved it off. Same difference. No one will believe you. Not even with proof. You're paranoid, obsessed, destabilized. I confronted her about the jewelry, the gifts from Emmanuel she hid. Her face paled. You care about appearances, not love. You thrive on worship. She lunged, gripping my throat. Not enough to harm, but enough to intimidate. You don't know my life, she hissed. I don't. But I'd never destroy someone for attention. I exited the closet, ignoring her reminder about my purse, heading to the tech booth. USB in hand. Lorena didn't know what I had. Add this to the slideshow, I instructed. I returned to the microphone. She watched, unknowing that her world was about to crumble. I want to thank everyone for coming. Lorena has spent months preparing this party, celebrating 30 years of marriage. But before continuing, everyone deserves to know the truth about those years. The screen flickered to texts, photos, timestamps, Emmanuel and Lorena in hotel rooms, messages revealing deception spanning 7 years. 200 people watched. Emmanuel's wife gasped. Kenneth's face drained of color. Lorena's smile vanished. These messages show 7 years of lies, cheating, and preaching fidelity while betraying everyone, I announced. Lorena lunged at the projector. Cousins blocked her. Emmanuel attempted escape, stopped by groomsmen. I continued. She announced my miscarriage publicly, claimed I was unstable, turned my husband against me, all while texting a lover. Kenneth removed his ring, then walked out. Half the guests followed. Lorena screamed, accusing me of lies, jealousy, mental instability. Photos kept revealing her betrayal, her life unraveling before everyone she wanted to impress. Lorena's voice was rising, accusing and hysterical, but nobody was listening anymore. Emmanuel's wife had already thrown the champagne glass, and guests were whispering, pointing and staring in shock. Shane had walked out, leaving Lorena exposed to everyone. The room was silent except for the projector, scrolling the evidence relentlessly. I stepped forward, microphone in hand, and spoke clearly. This is not about jealousy. This is about truth. You all have been shown texts, photos, and receipts proving that for 7 years, Lorena lied to everyone she claimed to love. She preached fidelity and trust while betraying her own marriage and deceiving the people in this room. Lorena tried to interrupt, but Max stood up from his seat. For the first time, I saw clarity in his eyes. Mom, he said calmly but firmly, it's over. I can't defend you anymore. Kenneth returned from outside, pale but resolute. I trusted you for 30 years, Lorena. I believed in your love, and now I see that it was all a performance. Emmanuel tried to speak, but his wife's glare silenced him instantly. She stepped forward, holding his arm tightly. You're done here. You lied to me for years, and now everyone sees it. Face the consequences. Guests murmured in shock, some shaking their heads, others wiping away tears. The pastor, finally regaining composure, stepped forward. This is a house of God, but it is also a house of truth. Lies have been exposed tonight. We must all seek justice and accountability, even among our leaders. Lorena's face drained of color. She stumbled backward, grasping the microphone like a lifeline. You'll regret this. I'll make you pay. I turned to the room. No more secrets. No more lies. This is the life you've been hiding, and now everyone knows the truth. Guests started to leave in clusters, whispering, avoiding Lorena, many confronting her privately about her betrayal. Kenneth took Max's hand, both of them standing beside me. Shane had returned quietly, nodding at me, a silent thank you. Emmanuel was escorted out by security, and his furious wife humiliated in front of everyone. Lorena's reign was over. For the first time, she had no narrative to spin, no sympathy to garner. She was alone, exposed, her manipulations laid bare. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had endured humiliation, heartbreak, and betrayal, but I had reclaimed my power. Mac looked at me, his eyes clear, finally understanding the truth about his mother. Kenneth approached, tears in his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you for revealing this, for showing the truth." The party ended in chaos, yes, but it ended honestly. Lorena's lies could no longer hold sway. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of relief. I had survived her, exposed her, and reclaimed my life. We didn't need to apologize, and we didn't need her approval. The family would heal, but Lorena's control had ended. And as I left the ballroom, surrounded by friends and family who finally understood, I knew one thing for certain: truth, even in the face of deception, is always more powerful than lies. If you found the story as shocking and emotional as I did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, Infidelity Heartbreaking Stories, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our true and intense stories. Share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives on these unbelievable real-life situations.